You yield back 1 minute and 18 seconds. It'll go on your account. Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try not to steal from Senator
Yeah,
Kelly.
you don't get the extra 118.
All right. I just thought maybe you were giving that up for me. Well, I appreciate the panel. It's a really important topic. Let me go into an issue that I think might be impacting recruiting, but I want to hear from you. The national media, unfortunately some in the administration, after January 6th started trotting out this narrative that we have all these extremists in the military, okay? I'm looking at a bunch of Washington Post stories. The Washington Post used to write this about once a week. By the way, it was ridiculous, okay? Those of us who have served in the military know that, of course, you have knuckleheads in every organization, right? But the vast majority, vast majority of the men and women who serve in the military serve with honor and distinction. They're the best and brightest. We had a senator here who once said he thought 10% of the military was, quote, extremists. Idiotic, okay? That's hundreds of thousands of members of the military. Wrong, right? He was clueless when he made that point. In the NDAA last year, I got a provision in there that was supported by Democrats and Republicans saying to the Secretary, hey, no more witch hunts. We're not funding any more, not 1 cent for this so-called witch hunt on extremists in the military. That passed. That's in the NDA. Can't do it anymore. So, but it's out there. And unfortunately, it's in the media. It's some officials in this administration. And don't you think that that impacts recruiting? That for the last year, we've been saying that we have all these quote-unquote extremists in the military. If you're a young mom and your son wants to join the Navy, she's kind of doesn't know a lot about the military. I'm not sure I want my son to join the Navy. It's got a bunch of extremists. Has that hurt us? Has that hurt us? Is that one of the factors hurting us? This self-inflicted, non-factual, by the way, the Secretary, to his credit, did a study, found that less than 100 members of a 2.1 million member force were conducting extremist activity. That's 0.005% less. There's probably more extremists in the Congress than that. So what do you think about that issue as hurting recruiting? Anyone thought about that?
Senator Sullivan, I'll start. I'll agree with you that, first and foremost, the vast majority of soldiers in our Army serve honorably.
So we don't have an extremist problem in the military, right?
The overwhelming majority of our soldiers serve honorably, as I said earlier.
Of course.
And we do not believe that that's an issue for them.
So is this hurting recruiting?
So we do not have any evidence that it's impacting our recruiting, but what I will say is we're focused on making sure that we're building cohesive, strong teams in the Army and to publicize that so that whenever we're talking to educators, parents, grandparents, influencers about their sons and daughters joining the Army, they understand that they are joining a highly performing performing team that builds positive command climates, and that's what we want to continue.
Anyone else, have any of you guys seen this? You're highlighting in your testimony some of the recruiting challenges, but this one seems to me a self-inflicted wound. Again, our national media, which is pretty clueless on what goes on in the military, love this narrative post-January 6th. It was wrong. The narrative was wrong, factually wrong. The Secretary proved it. Any of you seeing that as a problem, and how do we counter that?
Sir, I would echo my colleague's comments that the overwhelming number of sailors and Marines serve honorably. I think there is a perception on a range of toxic behaviors that I believe are very small but very important to get at, that Americans are concerned that they may join the military and be faced with unacceptable behaviors ranging from sexual harassment to other behaviors. But
it's really important for you guys to get the word out that that's not the case. Of course, we don't want any of that in our military, but it's not an epidemic. It's certainly not 10% of the force, correct?
I have no evidence to suggest it's near 10%.
Let me ask another question. This is access to recruiters. So I've had a long history with certain elite universities, colleges. My alma mater booted ROTC off campus 50 years ago, and it was a struggle to get some of the top universities in America to accept ROTC. Ridiculous. Congress finally acted and said, hey, you're not going to accept ROTC on your campus, you're not going to get federal dollars. I'm hearing a lot of stories, particularly from some, no offense, but woke school administrators, that they're not letting recruiters onto high school campuses to just recruit. So what I'd like to do for the record, and first ask if you're seeing it, but I'd like for each one of you to come back and give us any anecdotes to where high schools are not allowing recruiters on campus. And if that's the case, I believe the Congress should look at ways to say, all right, you're a high school, you don't want to bring the Marine Corps recruiter on your campus, your federal funds are cut off. What do you think about something like that? And are you seeing access on campuses as a problem for high schools?
Sir, I have no examples of being denied access, but Secretary Del Toro recently wrote to more than 260 high schools asking for better access, just more regular access to students, and happy to follow up for the record.
Anyone else?
Senator, we met with the Department of Education just recently and talked about this as one of those issues. And there was a feeling that the military recruiters were targeting certain schools based on racial minorities and things like that, and not going to other schools.
Okay, and you think that's true?
I don't have the data on that, Senator, but I think the important thing is that they thought that we were targeting their children to go into the military instead of getting an education. And again, I think we need to have that narrative that the military is a way to get an education, and it's also a way to get a high-paying job. And so it's not a negative thing to have the recruiter show up to your school, but we can follow up to see if we have any specific examples.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. Senator Manchin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank everyone.